A slow journey through stone and time, as the first light of dawn caresses the rolling hills of the Scottish Highlands. The mist begins to rise soft, slow, and spectral. It unfurls like a veil, revealing shapes and silhouettes that had slumbered through the night. Among them, the forms of stone towers and crumbling battlements appear like ancient dreams given form. They rise not suddenly, but with a graceful stillness, rooted deep in the earth beneath them. These are the castles of Scotland, timeless and watchful, the silent witnesses of ages past. There is no rush here, no need to hurry. The rhythm of these landscapes is slow, deliberate, like the turning of an old book's pages. Let us begin this journey gently, with open hearts and quiet minds, as we drift back into a time when these mighty structures were not only homes and fortresses, but living, breathing parts of a world both harsh and beautiful. Scotland is a land where time settles deep into the soil. The landscape itself feels like a memory, with its wide, heather-covered moors, craggy hills, and lochs that mirror the sky like silver glass. It is among this ancient terrain that the castles stand, not apart from the land, but as extensions of it. Built with stone hewn from nearby quarries, their walls blend with the rugged terrain, their foundations often carved directly into rock. They are not ornaments, but anchors firmly placed and patiently enduring. In this chapter, we do not race through battles or rush to unveil grand tales. Instead, we move with calm and care, allowing each castle's presence to slowly unfold. For every stone laid was done so with purpose. Every tower was raised not simply for defense, but to proclaim a presence, a home, a sanctuary, a symbol of continuity. We begin not with kings or lords, but with the builders themselves, craftsmen of the 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries. With rough hands and resolute hearts, they labored in the wind and rain, carving, stacking, shaping. Their work was precise, even when the tools were simple. A mallet, a chisel, a guiding eye, and a wisdom passed down through generations. They understood the land. They respected its weather, its slope, its hidden faults. And so they built structures that would stand for centuries, many of which still rise today. The earliest castles in Scotland began as timber motte and bailey structures, introduced by the Normans in the late 11th century. These were functional, modest in appearance, and often temporary. But as power solidified and wealth grew, timber gave way to stone. These stone fortresses were not just stronger, they were statements of lineage, of legacy, of dominion. Picture a solitary hill overlooking a glen. A small tower, squat and sturdy, rises from its crest. Smoke curls gently from a chimney. Around it, a curtain wall embraces a courtyard where livestock mill and guards stand watch. This is a 12th century tower house, simple but effective. Inside, warmth flickers from a hearth. Wooden beams creak. A ladder leads to sleeping quarters above. There is a softness here, despite the cold stone. A sense of safety, of life continuing through the seasons. And then, as centuries passed, the castles grew. They became grander, more complex. Tower houses expanded into great halls. Spiral staircases were added, crafted with precision, so defenders, descending, could wield a sword more easily with their dominant right hand. Arched doorways were adorned with delicate carvings. Arrow slits became artful as well as functional. A language of stone began to emerge, one that told not just of defense, but of culture and identity. By the 14th century, castles like Doon, Bothwell, and Durlton stood proudly across the land. Each bore unique elements: a round tower here, a vaulted ceiling there. No two were entirely alike, and yet all shared a purpose: to protect, to govern, to anchor a family or a clan to the land they called home. We often think of castles as bastions of war, and indeed, they were. But they were also deeply personal spaces, homes for families, places of laughter and music, of grief and prayer, of children growing and elders passing on their wisdom. Imagine, if you will, a quiet morning within the walls of Stirling Castle. The year is 1470. A soft breeze drifts through the open window of the Queen's chamber, bringing with it the scent of dew-covered roses from the garden below. The stone walls are thick, but the light filters through a lattice, painting delicate patterns on the flagstone floor. A servant tiptoes across the room, laying out silks and linens for the day's attire. In another room, a nursemaid hums an old Gaelic lullaby, cradling a child soon to be king. These moments, small, fleeting, are as much a part of castle life as sieges and treaties. They ground the grandeur in something tender and relatable. They remind us that within these walls, people lived. They loved. They struggled. They hoped. In the kitchens, great fires roared as cooks prepared meals of venison stew, honeyed oatcakes, and baked apples. Servants passed quietly through corridors with wooden trays and linen cloths. In the great hall, minstrels rehearsed their songs, while courtiers whispered rumors and planned their next move. The soundscape was gentle, distant footsteps, the echo of a harp, the creak of timber as wind passed over roofs thick with moss and lichen. One cannot speak of Scottish castles without pausing to admire the astonishing range and artistry of their architecture. It is not merely functional. It is thoughtful, expressive, deeply in tune with the environment around it. Let us wander for a while through a few examples, each quietly whispering of the hands that shaped it. At Craigmillar Castle, just outside Edinburgh, we find a magnificent example of a medieval courtyard castle. Here the outer walls blend seamlessly with the land, enclosing orchards, gardens, and even a dovecot and ancient pigeon tower used for food and communication. The inner tower, square and formidable, is softened by ivy and time. The stones are weathered, each one telling of storms endured, winters past, and summers long forgotten. At Kilchurn Castle, the ruins sit peacefully at the edge of Loch Awe, reflected in the still mirror-like waters. The structure seems to rise from the very loch itself, a dream in stone. Its tower stands tall, surrounded by mist and silence. It feels otherworldly, as if it were placed there by something greater than man. And in a way, it was by generations of builders, guided by reverence for the land and the desire to protect what they held dear. Then there is Eilean Donan, perhaps Scotland's most iconic castle. Nestled at the meeting point of three lochs, it is connected to the land by a gently arching stone bridge. During twilight, when the last golden light slips over the hills and the water glows silver blue, Eilean Donan looks not like a building, but a memory. Quiet, enduring, perfectly at home. These are not fortresses in the brutal sense. They are expressions of a people's resilience, yes, but also of their aesthetic, their harmony with nature, their belief that strength can coexist with beauty. Time moves differently in a castle, and seasons shape that time. In spring, the air softens, and the surrounding lands stir awake. Buds open on trees. Violets and primroses bloom along the walls. In the kitchens, fresh herbs are gathered: sage, thyme, wild garlic. Courtyards echo with the return of birdsong. The castle awakens. In summer, the stones grow warm under the midday sun. The shadows in the great halls shorten. Feasts spill out into open gardens. Tournaments are held in the outer fields. Laughter drifts across battlements. Tapestries are aired. Life, for a time, feels bountiful and bright. In autumn, golden leaves gather in corners. The scent of smoke and spice permeates the air. Food is preserved. Ale is brewed. The walls grow quieter as daylight fades earlier. Lanterns glow softly through narrow windows, painting golden halos in the deepening dusk. And in winter, all becomes hushed. Snow piles against the outer walls. Fires crackle in every chamber. Wool blankets are piled thick, and candles burn long into the night. Outside, the land sleeps. Inside, stories are told, songs are sung, and the castle becomes a world unto itself. To truly understand a Scottish castle, one must imagine it not as an object, but as a presence. It has breath, the wind whistling through arrow slits and chimneys. It has a pulse, the daily comings and goings of people, animals, and even seasons. It has memory, the echo of footsteps on worn stone stairs, the marks of repair and age, the layers of plaster and lichen. These buildings are more than structures. They are vessels of time. They hold within them not just the past, but the feeling of the past. And when we walk their halls, or gaze upon them from a distance, we are not just seeing what once was, we are sensing it. We are brushing against the fabric of centuries, woven tightly with silence, shadow, and story. Now let us take a deep breath. Let us stand at the edge of a castle's parapet, overlooking a quiet glen. Let the wind play gently against our skin. Let the weight of history settle gently on our shoulders, not as a burden, but as a blanket, soft, comforting. The castle beside us does not speak, but it listens. It remembers. The sky above is vast, shifting slowly. The loch below is still, save for the ripple of a passing breeze. All is calm. All is steady. And in this moment, time stretches thin. We are part of something much older, much quieter, something enduring. This chapter was only the beginning. A slow, thoughtful step into a world of shadowed corridors, mossy stones, and the quiet heartbeat of history. In the chapters to come, we will explore the stories of courage, of mystery, of love, and of legend. But always we will return to this place of stillness, of stone, of silence. For now, let your mind rest in the quiet embrace of these timeless walls. Let the stones cradle your thoughts. Let sleep take you gently, as the castles keep their watch. A gentle passage through valor, struggle, and life within the walls, beneath the hushed skies of medieval Scotland, where hills undulate like softened velvet and the lochs lie still as silver pools. The echoes of warriors remain not in the clash of swords, but in the stillness that followed. Every castle that sits upon a crag, every ruin that leans into the wind, once housed those who bore arms not for glory, but for duty, for land, for kin. And so we begin not with thunder, but with whispers. The sound of a lone footstep on a worn stone stair, the soft breath of a sentry on a winter night, a flicker of torchlight against a damp wall. This is not a story of conquest. It is a story of presence, of courage lived quietly, of conflict not dramatized but endured, and of daily life wrapped around the moments that shaped history subtly, reverently, and with the same care as a mother binding cloth to a wound. Let us walk slowly now into the heart of castle life and listen for the unspoken voices that linger still. Within the confines of castle walls, many a soldier found shelter. Not the armored titans of legend, but men and boys drawn from farms, villages, and lesser halls, each carrying their own fears and hopes, each with a name remembered only by the stones themselves. At Kilchurn Castle, overlooking the dark, mist-shrouded waters of Loch Ness, such men once stood watch quietly, faithfully. The wind was always present there, curling around the towers, hissing softly through narrow slits where eyes scanned the horizon. The threat of invasion, whether from English soldiers or rival clans, was constant. Yet those who stood upon those battlements did not tremble. They simply watched. They simply waited. Imagine a young man, barely of age, wrapped in a woolen cloak, hands cupped around a flickering lantern. His heart beats steadily, matching the rhythm of the waves against the rocks below. He thinks of his family, perhaps a mother weaving by the hearth, a younger brother tending sheep. He is far from heroic in appearance, but his presence, his choice to stand guard on that cold wall, was courage made manifest. And in Dunstafnage Castle, nestled at the gateway to the Western Isles, Warriors prepared not just for battle, but for sea. The fortress was a key maritime stronghold, its garrison familiar with tides as much as terrain. Boats moored below the stone ramparts, where warriors trained not only with sword and bow, but also with oar and sail. They were not just fighters, they were voyagers, messengers, protectors of passageways both land and sea. These men, these warriors, lived with the knowledge that they might not see the next season. And yet they rose with the dawn, trained beneath gray skies, laughed with their comrades, and whispered prayers into the night. Their bravery was quiet, steady, enduring. Beneath the noble banners fluttering from castle towers, a more intricate struggle unfolded, one not just between kingdoms, but within them. Kings and clans, lords and liegemen, all maneuvered through a web of alliances, betrayals, and shifting loyalties. The castles were not merely battlefields, they were chessboards, where every hall echoed with unspoken strategy. Take, for instance, Stirling Castle, a seat of royal power, perched above the River Forth. Within its walls, monarchs were born and crowned, plots were conceived, and treaties signed in ink and blood alike. The great hall, with its tall windows and vaulted ceiling, bore witness to arguments whispered in corners, and decisions that would shape the very soil of Scotland. And yet, among these high affairs, the smaller clans stirred. The Campbells, the MacDonalds, the Sinclairs, the Frasers, each with their own claims, their own sense of pride, their own interpretation of justice. Their banners flew from their own castles, Inverary, Dooneyveg, Rosslyn. Each castle was a miniature court, a local power, a heart beating in rhythm with the people who depended on it. Conflicts did arise, some sharp and swift, others slow burning. But beyond the violence lay the deeper theme, identity. These clans were more than political factions, they were families. And each castle, in turn, became the soul of that family. Within its stone chambers, decisions were made that would ripple across glens and generations. Let us pause now and picture a council chamber in a Highland keep. Around a heavy oak table, elders speak in quiet tones. Their voices are not raised. They weigh their words like gold. Outside, snow drifts against the shutters. A hound lies curled by the fire. A daughter listens from the shadows, learning not from swordplay, but from silence. This, too, was conflict. But it was also courage. The courage to lead. The courage to yield. The courage to preserve, not destroy. Beyond the warriors and the nobles, a quieter rhythm played out each day within the castle's walls. The lives of those who served the cooks, the masons, the scullery maids, the blacksmiths were the unseen scaffolding of these fortresses. Their courage lay not in battle, but in devotion. In the early morning, before the cock's crow had faded into the glen, the kitchen fires were already kindling. Heavy iron pots were swung over the flames, filled with barley, roots, salted meat. The stone walls of the kitchen glowed faintly with amber light. The scent of smoke, onions, and bread mingled in the air, wrapping the servants like a familiar shawl. Above, the castle stirred slowly. A nursemaid hummed to a restless child. A page clattered down the corridor with water for his master. Outside, the stable hands began their day, brushing the shaggy coats of Highland ponies and hauling fresh straw into stalls. There were rituals here, born not of luxury, but of necessity. The drawing of water from the well, the spinning of wool by hand, the sharpening of blades, not just for battle, but for the daily carving of meat, of wood, of letters. Even in times of siege, when food ran low and the gates were closed tight, these rhythms endured. The castle, in these times, became a world unto itself. Life narrowed, but did not end. By candlelight, children learned to read. Women sewed by touch and memory. Men repaired walls and melted snow for water. And in the chapel, someone always prayed. It would be remiss to speak of courage within castles, and not linger for a time with the women who lived there. Too often relegated to background in tales of war, they were in truth the keepers of peace, the managers of survival, and when needed, the fiercest defenders of all. At Threave Castle, it was Lady Margaret Douglas, known as the Fair Maid of Galloway, who held the fortress in her own right. At a time when inheritance passed almost exclusively through men, Margaret defied expectation. She did not brandish a sword, but she wielded influence, resilience, and keen intelligence. Within castle walls, noblewomen managed households of astounding complexity. They oversaw storerooms, defended estates during their husbands' absences, and navigated court politics with careful grace. They also raised children, sewed banners, copied manuscripts, and brokered peace when steel had failed. Imagine a woman standing atop a battlement, not in armor, but in a woolen cloak, her hair braided tightly against the wind. She surveys the land, not with fear, but with clarity. Her husband is away. Her sons are young. The castle is hers to keep, and she will keep it. Her courage is quiet, but unbreakable. In the servants' quarters, young girls worked beside older women, learning the arts of herbal medicine, weaving, and storytelling. Their laughter was light, but their hands calloused. Their labor, like that of their mothers before them, ensured the castle thrived, not just in times of peace, but also when the world outside turned cruel. Though much has been said of battle and bravery, the castles also knew long stretches of peace of stillness, unmarred by war drums or cries. These were the years of growth, of rebuilding, of quiet prosperity. And within them, another kind of courage flourished, the courage to live simply, fully, and without recognition. During these times, music filled the great halls more often than mourning. Children chased each other through open courtyards. Feasts were prepared not to celebrate victory, but the changing of the seasons, the return of the sun, the blessings of harvest. Bards told stories not of heroes dying, but of lovers reunited, of trickster foxes and wise old kings. The fires crackled warmly. Dogs dozed by the hearth. And overhead, the stars turned in their ancient dance. It is in these peaceful moments that the soul of the castle truly breathes. For the true victory of any fortress is not in holding fast against siege, but in preserving a life worth living within. As we bring this chapter to a gentle close, imagine once more a castle, perhaps a lesser-known one. Its stones are mottled with lichen. Its roof is gone. The moss creeps between flagstones. And yet, the silence around it is not empty. It is full of the memory of those who stood upon its walls, full of the laughter that once echoed in its halls, full of the breath of generations, lived in courage and care. Let us sit quietly here, among the wildflowers, listening. Let us honor the warriors who never sought glory, the clans who lived and died for more than pride, the women who held their homes together with grit and grace, and the people humble, steadfast, unseen, who made these castles not just strong, but alive. Sleep now, wrapped in their legacy. Drift gently into the hush of memory, and let their stories keep watch as you dream. A whispered journey through hidden chambers and timeless tales. It begins with a sound almost imperceptible, a creak of old wood, the brush of wind through a narrow stone corridor, the soft sigh of a wall breathing the cold. Somewhere, a door is left slightly ajar, not broken, not forgotten, just ajar enough to invite wonder. Scottish castles are not only strongholds of war or halls of grandeur. They are keepers of secrets, hidden rooms, forgotten staircases, legends so old they've grown roots in the stone. While many stories told by daylight are bright and proud, there are others that whisper in the shadows. They do not shout for attention. They simply linger, waiting for someone quiet enough to hear. In this chapter, we walk with lanterns low and hearts open. We explore not the battles fought or the crowns worn, but the spaces left untouched, the places behind walls, the moments behind myths, the lives that shaped legends too subtle for chronicles, too peculiar for court, and yet deeply woven into the soul of each castle. Every castle has its mysteries. Behind the heavy doors and sweeping staircases, tucked into corners the sun forgets to reach, are spaces once used for escape, for hiding, or simply for solitude. Some were built with intention. Others formed by accident spaces where stone met stone imperfectly, and someone long ago found use in the flaw. Let us begin in Glamis Castle, a sprawling estate nestled in the lowlands of Angus. It is said that Glamis holds more than one hidden chamber, secret rooms so deeply concealed that even today its location is uncertain. According to legend, the secret was kept so fiercely that when masons built the walls, they were blindfolded. Only a few knew the truth, and they carried it to their graves. Why hide a room so well? The stories vary. Some say it was used to imprison a disfigured heir. Others claim it housed secrets of state or served as a hidden chapel in times of religious persecution. But perhaps the truth is simpler. A space to retreat, to reflect, to keep something precious safe from a changing world. Moving northward, we find Craigmillar Castle, a dreamlike tower wrapped in ivy and surrounded by gardens that bloom in careful color. Here, a small corridor leads to a forgotten chamber, an old servant's passage, now sealed. Visitors often remark on its strange air, as though the very stones recall footsteps long vanished. And in Castle Fraser, another noble home-turned historic site, there's a narrow, twisting stair behind a fireplace. It was used for private movement between rooms, for safety, for secrets. The passage is barely wide enough for a grown man, and its stones are smoothed with use. Not carved for grandeur, but for necessity, the quiet kind. The walls of these castles hold their breath, guarding what they know. Some secrets are carved into the mortar. Others simply linger unwritten but present, like perfume in an empty room. In the hush of the highlands, after dusk slips across the glens and the lochs darken to ink, the castles do not fall silent. Instead, they shift. The atmosphere becomes denser, the shadows richer, and the sense of time blurs at the edges. It is then, perhaps, when the echoes of other lives begin to stir. Not all ghosts are terrifying. Not all seek to frighten. In Scotland's castles, the spirits are often gentle reminders of lives left unfinished, of loves untended, of duties not yet relinquished. At Ivy Castle in Aberdeenshire, the tale is told of the Green Lady. She is said to roam the corridors in soft silence, her gown shimmering like moonlight on dew. Her name was Lilias Drummond, and legend has it she died of a broken heart betrayed, some say, by a husband who locked her away. To this day, her name is etched on a windowsill, and her presence is felt when roses bloom out of season. In Edinburgh Castle, a lone bagpiper is said to haunt the tunnels beneath the rock. Centuries ago, he was sent to explore the underground passages that link the castle to the Royal Mile. As he played, others followed his sound above ground, but then the music stopped. He never emerged. The tunnels were sealed, but to this day, when the city sleeps, some still claim to hear the distant, mournful tune of pipes carried on the wind. Stirling Castle, regal and storied, is home to the Lady in Pink, a mysterious figure seen drifting across the battlements and through archways. Dressed in rose-colored silks, she appears neither angry nor sad, simply present, as if still waiting, as if still watching. These stories may not be proven, but neither can they be disproved. In a land where time is thick and memory clings to stone, who is to say what is imagined and what is remembered by the earth itself? Where kings and queens tread, so too follow affairs of the heart, some celebrated, others hidden. Within castle walls, love bloomed and withered in equal measure. Arranged marriages gave way to longing glances, and political unions quietly bent beneath the weight of forbidden desires. In Linlithgow Palace, a place of astonishing beauty, now partly reclaimed by time, Mary, Queen of Scots, was born. She would grow into a monarch, both beloved and cursed, her life entangled with suitors, betrayals, and exile. Yet within the stone of her birthplace, one can still sense the beginnings of tenderness. Perhaps it was here, on a quiet afternoon, that she once sat by the loch's edge and dreamed not of thrones, but of companionship. Hermitage Castle, darker in tone and appearance, tells a tale of passion wrought with danger. Mary, Queen of Scots, famously rode through treacherous lands to see her wounded lover, the Earl of Bothwell, lying ill in its shadowy halls. Some see the act as reckless, others romantic. Perhaps it was both. But in the castle's ruined heart, one imagines that moment, a flicker of love amidst looming stone. And not all betrayals were romantic. Some were familial, some political. In Kilchurn Castle, the Maxwell family once held sway, only to suffer from shifting allegiances and internal treachery. A brother turning on a brother, a father ousted by his kin. The betrayal was not always with blades. Sometimes it was with silence, with withheld support, with secrets traded for safety. Yet even these moments are not to be judged quickly. Each life lived within these walls was nuanced, textured with fear, loyalty, hope. In the quiet of night, one might imagine a noblewoman kneeling in a chapel, torn between duty and affection. Or a scribe, pausing over a letter he cannot bring himself to send. Such stories are not loud, they are felt. Castles were not just built to endure time, they were built to communicate. Hidden in carvings, woven into tapestries, and etched into glass were symbols meant to be seen by few and interpreted by fewer still. At Rosslyn Chapel, often associated with the nearby Stirling Castle, carvings of such complexity exist that scholars still debate their meaning. Green men faces surrounded by leaves peer from corners. Stars and patterns form an unspoken code. Some say they hold secrets of ancient brotherhoods. Others believe they tell of lost knowledge. But perhaps they simply reflect a desire to leave something behind that only time can reveal. Even within the walls of lesser-known castles, we find discrete markers, family crests, altered subtly to convey descent. Wall paintings painted over, then re-emerging centuries later. Scratched initials in a windowsill. A child's game long etched in the floor. A reminder that even in the shadows of politics, joy was carved into the daily rhythm. Secrets do not always hide in darkness. Sometimes they shine quietly in the light, overlooked but present. Scottish folklore is rich with creatures and tales that entwine seamlessly with the history of its castles. In these stones, myth and fact are not adversaries. They are neighbors. Stories abound of Selkie seal folk who took human form. Some say a noblewoman of Dunvegan Castle fell in love with one, and their child bore eyes like the sea. At Dunvegan, the fairy flag, a relic kept by Clan MacLeod, has its own legend. Said to have been gifted by the Fae, the flag was believed to bring victory and protection when unfurled. It rests now in a case, fragile and faded, yet deeply revered. Dunstafnage Castle carries the story of the Stone of Destiny, said to have once rested there. This stone, used in the coronation of Scottish kings, was believed to hold ancient power. Whether legend or lineage, the belief gave it life. These tales do not demand a belief. They invite wonder. And in a world so rich in shadow and light, perhaps that is the most powerful invitation of all. We end not with answers, but with invitations. A castle's deepest stories are not always found in guidebooks or archives. They are discovered in silence. In the way light plays across a dusty corridor. In the pause before a door opens. In the hush after a story is told. Secrets and legends are not the same as lies. They are memories wrapped in metaphor, truths softened by time. They ask not to be solved, but to be felt, to be held gently like a candle in cupped hands. So let us return once more to a quiet room, somewhere in a forgotten tower. Dust dances in the sunlight that filters through a narrow slit. A breeze stirs the air, bringing with it the scent of heather and old stone. Somewhere beneath the floor, a passage turns. Somewhere in the walls, a name is carved. Somewhere in this very moment, a legend takes root in your mind. You need not remember every detail, only the feeling, the hush, the wonder, the invitation to listen more closely and dream more deeply. A soft reflection on endurance, memory, and the echoes of time. The centuries pass. Monarchs rise and fall. Flags change. Families vanish into history's wide folds. But still the castles remain, weathered by wind, softened by moss, strengthened by stillness. They are not what they once were. Towers have crumbled. Great halls have quieted. The grandeur of ceremony and the clang of conflict have faded into silence. And yet, what is left is not absence, but essence. What remains is not ruin, but resilience. In this chapter, we pause not to look backward alone, but forward. We explore the legacy of Scotland's castles, not simply in what they once were, but in what they have become. How they are remembered, preserved, restored. How they linger in poetry, in art, in the hearts of those who walk their halls today. A legacy is not only what is left behind, it is what continues. Walk through the grounds of Eilean Castle, and you will see more than stone. You will see care. Paths are swept clean. Ivy is gently trimmed. The air carries the soft scent of growing things. This is not an ancient site locked in time, but a living space tended with reverence. Across Scotland, quiet hands work each day to preserve what the centuries have spared. Archaeologists gently excavate corners of forgotten keeps. Historians pore over old manuscripts, seeking clarity. Craftspeople restore carvings, one delicate inch at a time. Stonemasons shape new blocks to match the old, not to recreate the past, but to support its memory. At Stirling Castle, entire rooms have been restored to reflect the splendor of the Renaissance bold colors. Intricate tapestries, wooden ceilings, painted with stars and thistles. Walking into the royal palace, one is not simply witnessing the past, but stepping into it. The flicker of torches, the hush of footfall, the warm echo of harp music in a high chamber, these are brought to life not by magic, but by meticulous love. Even ruins, like Donan Castle, perched dramatically on the cliffs above the North Sea, are preserved in their brokenness. The wind may howl through open windows, and gulls may cry from the ramparts, but the stones are stabilized, documented, supported. There is beauty in decay, and care in allowing time its shape. Preservation is not about freezing history. It is about holding it softly, about letting it breathe, while ensuring it will not be lost. Not all legacies are written in books or traced on blueprints. Some are passed through memory, through bedtime stories told beside a crackling fire, through lullabies that speak of queens with golden hair and lords who vanished in the snow. Castles are more than architecture. They are icons, anchors in the Scottish imagination. They appear in paintings by the Scottish colorists, in poems by Robert Burns, in ballads sung softly in glens where no battlements remain. In literature, they are the settings of romance and mystery, pride and tragedy. From Walter Scott's stirring tales to the magical corridors of modern fantasy, Scottish castles have long stood as doors to other worlds. Even the names linger in the mind like music. Dunrobin, Craigmillar, Glamis, Inverary, each name a breath, a story, a song. And in these stories, the castles continue to live, not as relics of war, but as symbols of endurance, of rootedness, of a country that bends but does not break, that changes but does not forget. No Scottish castle exists in isolation. Each one is married to its setting, built not just for strategy, but for harmony. They rise from cliffs, hug the banks of lochs, nestle among trees as if they had grown from the very earth. The stone used to build them often came from nearby quarries, their color matching the hills around them. They do not sit atop the land, they are of it. Take Eilean Donan Castle, with its slender bridge curving across the water like a ribbon of stone. At dawn, the mist rolls in, and the castle seems to drift above the loch, untethered by time. Or Castle Stalker, standing alone on a tidal islet, surrounded by shifting light and water, its reflection a perfect echo on still days. These places do not merely survive, they breathe. The winds move through their arches. Rain settles in the grooves of old carvings. Wildflowers bloom where gardens once flourished. Birds nest in the rafters of abandoned towers. The land does not reject these ruins. It welcomes them. And so they continue half nature, half memory. To walk among them is not only to visit history. It is to feel the turning of seasons, the softness of dusk, the song of wind that has whispered the same stories for 1,000 years. Each year, thousands of visitors journey to Scotland, not simply for beauty, but for connection. They walk the winding path to Kilchurn Castle and gaze over Loch Ness in silence. They climb the stairs of Donan Castle, where film crews once staged great epics, and feel the cold stone beneath their fingers. They step into ruined chapels, kneel not in worship, but in wonder. Some come tracing ancestry, a grandfather's name in a book, a clan crest engraved on a gate. Others come for the stillness, for the chance to hear something older than words. And many bring children wide-eyed and curious, whispering into dark corridors, imagining dragons or hidden rooms. Castles are no longer homes, not in the traditional sense, but they welcome guests still, gently, quietly, whether through audio guides, reenactments, or quiet picnics on sunlit grass. These old stones continue to offer refuge, reflection, story. Even virtual visits through screens and stories, such as this, create connection. In the calm of night, with headphones cradling the ears and the mind slowly drifting, a listener might find themselves not in their bed, but on the shores of a highland loch, looking up at a silhouette of stone and sky. For those who live near them, castles are more than attractions. They are neighbors, guardians, symbols of local pride. In small villages, the castle ruins are places of gathering. Children explore them on summer afternoons. Couples exchange vows in shadowed chapels. Musicians perform beneath archways once reserved for kings. Festivals are held nearby. Flags are flown on special days. And when storms come, the community looks to the towers to see them stand, as they always have. Local volunteers often guide restoration efforts. They donate time. They raise funds. They share stories passed down through generations. Their role is as vital as that of any historian. For the castle does not survive through stone alone, but through the love of those who carry its memory forward. Even in the smallest glen, where only a single crumbling wall remains, someone knows its story. Someone has walked there and felt not loss, but presence. That, too, is legacy. In the stillness of these places, something soft and profound reveals itself. Castles, stripped of noise and urgency, become places of deep listening. They remind us to slow down, to breathe, to sit with silence. They do not demand, they offer. They do not shout, they hum. They do not judge the present. They enfold it in the arms of the past. A crumbling arch becomes a metaphor for endurance. A lichen-covered stone, a lesson in quiet growth. A broken staircase, an invitation to imagine where it once led. And so, the legacy of Scottish castles is not grandeur alone. It is grace, the grace of survival, the grace of memory, the grace of simply being in a world that often forgets to pause. What, then, is our role? What shall we do with these places of shadow and light, of legend and labor? Perhaps, above all, we are asked to listen, to care, to tell their stories softly, like lullabies, to visit them with reverence, to share them with kindness, to pass their names to others, not as trophies, but as treasures. We are stewards of legacy. We, too, are part of the story. Let the next travelers step where we stepped. Let them hear the same wind. Let them pause before the same wall and feel the same quiet awe. As we draw this chapter to a close, picture yourself beneath a twilight sky, standing at the edge of Loch Leven, where a castle rests on an island, surrounded by still water and birdsong. The air is cool. The sky is painted in soft blue and gold. You feel the hush settle around you. The castle is old. Its stones have seen joy and sorrow, laughter and loss. But tonight, it is simply here, watching, waiting, enduring. You walk a little closer. You touch the stone. It is rough beneath your fingers, but warm from the day's sun. You close your eyes, and in that moment, you do not need a history book. You are part of the legacy. You are part of the story. A twilight reflection on presence, wonder, and timeless grace. The day wanes. Above the quiet highlands, the sky turns from gold to lavender. The sun dips slowly, as if reluctant to leave, painting the stones of an old castle in hues of honey and rose. Shadows grow longer. Winds carry the scent of pine and peat. The world quiets, and the castle breathes, not loudly, not with drama, but with the steady inhale and exhale of age and presence. It has stood here for centuries, this place. It has known kings and cattle, feasts and famines, joy and grief. But now it is simply itself, a structure of stone and silence. As we begin this final chapter, we do not rush to conclusions. We walk slowly, gently, in the hush before night. And in that soft space, we look not only at history, but at beauty. The kind that remains, even when walls fall, even when voices fade. The enduring beauty of Scottish castles is not just what they were, but what they are. Not only what they held, but what they continue to offer quietness, wonder, and stillness amidst the whirl of modern life. There is a stillness around a castle at dusk, unlike any other. It is the stillness of presence, of being watched not by eyes, but by memory, of standing within a moment that feels both ancient and immediate. Picture yourself now in the grassy courtyard of Craigmillar Castle, just as the day slips behind the trees. The stones around you are warm from the sun, but cooling quickly. The air grows crisp. There is no sound but the faint rustle of leaves and the occasional cry of a distant bird returning home. You sit down on a smooth rock, feeling its firmness beneath you. You place your hand on the ground. You do not speak. You do not move. You simply are. In that stillness, you begin to notice the quiet beauty. A small fern growing between the cracks of the outer wall. The gentle arc of a window long without glass. The way the ivy climbs, reaching skyward, threading memory into the sky. This stillness is not empty. It is full with peace, with presence, with layers of time. Beauty is not always grand. Often, it's in the quiet details. Run your fingers across the surface of a castle wall. It is rough, textured, grainy. Lichen speckles the surface in pale green and soft gray. In one place, the stone is chipped a sign of a blade, perhaps, or weather's patient hand. In another, it's smooth from centuries of touch. Each castle bears a palette shaped by its land. Dunottar glows amber at sunset, its coastal stones golden in the light. Doon wears the softer hues of central Scotland dusty browns, muted reds. Castle Tioram, a half ruin by the sea, blends so completely with its tidal island that it appears sculpted by nature itself. And then there is the way light moves through them. In early morning, beams stream through arrow slits like shafts of gold. At midday, the high towers cast shadows like sundials across grassy keeps. And by night, the moon rests gently upon the battlements, wrapping them in silver. Time itself seems to slow within these spaces. 1 minute becomes 10. One breath, a lifetime. In Scotland, weather is a living companion, mischievous, changeable, full of mood. And so the castles change, not just through centuries, but moment by moment. In mist, a castle becomes a ghost blurred at the edges, soft and otherworldly. In rain, its stones glisten, darkened with memory, as if weeping for times long past. In snow, it is reborn quiet, clean, cloaked in white serenity. And in the rare, clear sunlight, the walls shine like bone beneath skin, ancient and alive. Beauty lives in this transformation. The same tower seen in morning fog is different when viewed beneath a starlit sky. And every visitor sees something unique shaped by season, by weather, by their own stillness. But the beauty of Scottish castles is not only in what we see, it's in what we feel. There is a kind of emotion that arises only in places like these, a gentle ache, soft and bittersweet. A longing, not for the past, but for something beyond the everyday. A connection to something enduring. A recognition that we are small, but never insignificant. Standing within the walls of Kilchurn Castle, with Lochawe stretching out before you like a mirror, there is no need to think. There is only being. You feel the cool stone at your back. You smell the wet earth. You hear the call of a raven passing overhead, and you realize you are not separate from history. You are part of its continuum. Some call this feeling nostalgia. Others call it awe. But it is quieter than either. It is a still joy, a peaceful rootedness. This is beauty, and it lasts. The beauty of these castles is not reserved for summer postcards or perfect weather. In spring, daffodils bloom around crumbling moats. Ivy awakens, unfurling new green. The walls seem to stretch with the season, yawning after a long winter. In summer, light lingers late. Tourists walk gently among ruins. Children whisper stories in secret corners. The stones warm beneath their feet, holding the heat like hearthstones. In autumn, golden leaves blanket stone steps. Fog curls around turrets. The smell of peat smoke mingles with damp moss. It is the season of poetry, of reflection. And in winter, snow outlines every ledge etched in white. Silence deepens. Shadows grow long. And the castles seem to draw inward, holding their breath. Each season brings a different kind of beauty, and all are welcome. If you close your eyes, you'll find that castles sing not with voices, but with presence. The creak of old wood, the hush of wind through broken arches, the gentle tapping of rain on stone, the echo of your own breath deep in a stairwell, the call of distant birds, the flutter of wings in abandoned rafters. These sounds are not loud, but they are rich. Each castle has its own song, and those who pause to listen will find themselves not surrounded by silence, but immersed in an ancient lullaby. Over time, the castles of Scotland begin to live not only in the land, but in us. We carry them in the quiet of our minds. We remember a certain tower against the morning sky. We recall the feel of a particular doorway's stone, warmed by years of touch. We dream of walking through grass-filled courtyards, the wind tugging gently at our coat. In memory, these places continue to unfold. And long after our visit, long after the video ends or the journey concludes, something remains. Not a fact, not a date, but a feeling, a gentle weight of age, a breath of moss and dusk, a sense of being held by something older and wiser than we can name. The castles of Scotland are not waiting to be conquered or solved. They are not puzzles. They are not tests. They are invitations to wonder, to reflect, to dream, to sit with your back against a sun-warmed wall and let time pass without demand, to walk a spiral staircase and feel the hands of centuries in the rail, to look out from a turret and see not just the land, but the story it holds. Whether you visit them in person, in dreams, or through whispered stories such as this, their beauty is always waiting. You need no ticket. You need no guide. Only your attention. Only your quiet presence. And now, as stars begin to prick the indigo sky above the highlands, let us rest. We have wandered the great halls. We have stepped over threshold and battlement. We have listened for legends, traced the lines of history, and stood in silent reverence before crumbling walls. The journey is not ending. It is only pausing, for the castles will still be there tonight, tomorrow, long after we are gone, still watching, still listening, still beautiful. So lay your head gently down now. Close your eyes. Let the memory of stone and sky settle around you like a soft cloak. Let the wind of the glen become your lullaby. And if you dream tonight of towers and tapestries, of distant horns and flickering candles, know that the castles are not gone. They are simply with you, now and always.